Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this RedGamerTedCon video, I've got a question. How well does a GTX 980 fare in 2019, particularly up against the Turing counterpart, the RTX 2080. If you're a regular viewer, you'll know that we've been recently putting out a series of videos investigating the performance of older cards and how they game in modern titles. This particular GPU, which sports 2048 Cuda cores, was launched back in September of 2014. Now, an interesting fact is that most gamers do decide to keep their GPU for 2 generations, and this is particularly true, I suspect, for owners of this card, because think about it, when the GTX 980 was launched, it was absolutely monstrous. Eventually, Nvidia launched Pascal and the GTX 1080, but it's not like this card suddenly became incapable of playing titles that were released at that point, particularly if you had only a 1080p or a 1440p monitor, which were much more common back then. But then something really bad happened, and that is the cryptocurrency mining craze. Now, it's great if you cashed in and you made lots of money, but for most gamers, it was not the greatest thing in the world, and that's putting it mildly, and it inflated the price of GPUs. So if you were thinking of jumping on the Pascal bandwagon, there's a possibility that you just said, nope, I'm not paying those prices, and to be honest, I couldn't blame you. And then, obviously, more recently, the cryptocurrency mining craze has ended, but by the time it started to wind down, we started to hear rumours of Turing. So in this video, we're going to investigate how much a performance leap you can expect if you did decide to finally get rid of your GTX 980 and jump to Turing and the RTX 2080. This is the Founders Edition card, and it features 2048 Cuda cores, 128 texture units, 64 ROPs, and has a boost clock of 1216 MHz with a core clock of 1126, 7 GHz of GDDR5 memory on a 256-bit bus. It has 4 GB of VRAM. And as I said, launched back in September of 2014 and cost the princely sum of $549 US. The RTX 2080, meanwhile, has 2,944 Cuda cores, 8 GB of GDDR6 memory running at 14 Gbps, same 256-bit bus, and we have a boost frequency of this particular model, which is an MSI Gaming X Trio, of 1860 MHz. So that brings us to the only caveat of this video, and that is that this particular GPU is of course a non-reference design. It's much more like Nvidia's Founders Edition, which means that it has a significant core clock advantage compared to like the lower end SKUs in the RTX 2080 lineup, whereas this is a reference design GTX 980. So if you do have a non-reference design 980, then you can probably just bump the performance numbers up a little bit. Then again though, we just don't really think it's going to make that much of a difference, because often this card was VRAM limited anyway, and in games it really did struggle with, like, even if we were to increase the core clocks, let's say 10%, it's not going to make that much of an impact overall. Well, I'm also going to be doing a much deeper investigation of the entire Turing lineup, so do stick around for my tour of Turing, including some GTX 1660 Ti versus RTX 2060 and other cards that will be coming up in the not too distant future. I'd also like to thank Overclockers UK for helping make this video possible. They have loaned a i7 8700K based system to me, and I have overclocked the CPU, that is i7 8700K, to 5 GHz all cores, so that the CPU most certainly will not be a bottleneck in these tests. I also want to say that this is not a sponsored video. We do not get to keep the hardware that has been sent to us. This is purely for review purposes, and no money has exchanged hands, and all opinions and findings are our own. Okay, so now that we've looked at the built-in benchmarks, what about some manual gameplay? Here I've chosen a selection of different titles, including Crysis, because, you know, can it run Crysis? Along with other games such as Assassin's Creed, which will really tax the GPU, and we're running at 1440p with the highest quality settings with all of the games except Crysis, which is cranked up to 4K. And once again, we're going to be pitting these two cards together. So then, let's draw some conclusions. How well does a GTX 980 fare in 2019? Well, the answer is better than perhaps what some people might expect, but still you're going to get a far from optimum gaming experience. Although, to be fair, it is actually pretty remarkable how well the GTX 980 does still game. But if you were to jump to a card such as the RTX 2080, a GTX 1080 Ti or similar, the performance leap that you get is absolutely gargantuan, with frame rates increasing three times in some instances compared to the older counterpart when you consider the VRAM limitations of a GTX 980. Although, to their credit, these are available fairly cheaply on eBay, but honestly, I would not suggest anyone who does not have a capable GPU rush out and buy this. But still, I am still rather impressed with how well this card performs, and it does speak volumes to flagship GPUs and just how powerful they are when they are launched. This card was monumentally powerful at the time of its release, and it still does an admirable job. I mean, it's still impressive to me that this card can run modern titles quite frequently at 1080p and certainly at 1440p if you're willing to crank down the quality settings. But obviously, if you're looking to drive a high refresh rate monitor, especially if it's 1440p or above, and you don't want to make any compromises in visual quality, then your only option is to purchase a new card. With all of that said, hopefully you have enjoyed the video. Normal stuff if you did, like and share the video, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.